Okay. All right, we are ready. So now I would like to introduce to you Ellen Killough. She is from the Jewel Collins Smith Museum of Fine Arts at Auburn University. Ellen is our featured artist for our second annual Via Tutori Stafford, Via Colori Stafford, excuse me. Ellen is a classical artist specializing in performance art and murals. She has been participating in Italian street painting festivals for 20 years and works with chalk in the traditional style. Her work is figurative, expressive, and characterized by fluid lines, abrupt transitions, and unusual contrasts. She uses the human female figure to speak to issues that are meaningful to her in her own work and enjoys recreating great masterworks for the public at street painting festivals. Her works reside in private collections across the Southeast and along the Mid-Atlantic coast. Ellen is also an art and an antique collector and a restoration specialist of ornate plaster and carved wood pieces. Her collections reflect her own personal tastes, from Edwardian to Art Deco, pre to postmodern, Hollywood Regency to contemporary minimalism. A longtime museum administrator and fundraiser, she's a major gifts officer for the Jewel Collins Smith Museum of Fine Art at Auburn University. She was the executive director for the Fredericksburg Area Museum from 2010 to 2013. Ellen is originally from Montgomery, Alabama, and calls the Florida Gulf home.
All right. Wow. Thank you, Tracy. Hey, everybody. So before I get started, I wanted to say that I love it when people interact, and I think we do have too many on for me to be able to see everyone and talk to you individually while I do the presentation. So please feel free to just pop some questions into the chat. And I think this will take 20 to 25 minutes, but hopefully it'll be packed with information that you may have thought of. If it's too deep, if I don't cover something you're thinking of during this time, like I said, just pop it in the chat. So today we're going to work on a few things. Planning your piece of work from start to finish, using the background to your advantage, everything to make you feel comfortable, and to spend your energy on the visual part of your art and presenting your art and performing your art that will help you have a good time and relate to the public. We'll cover the supplies you need, how to choose your subject matter, what to compare your style to, why. I'll talk a little bit about what I like to do and why as we go along. And hopefully you'll get something out of it. So next slide. Okay. I'm assuming that most folks on the presentation haven't done a street painting before, and we're going to present the show that way. So what you'll need is a clipboard, a T-square, 2 copies of your subject, 8.5 by 11, unless you work from an iPad or a computer, which I really don't recommend outside because of weather, reflection on the glass, etc. But it's your piece. I'm just telling you what works best for me. You'll need painter's tape. We deal with wind all the time. Wind can also blow the chalk away. So while paint can't keep your chalk down, it can define the edges of your painting, especially if you copy something that isn't a rectangle. Not all street painters do that. I'm not doing that this year when I do a 3D piece, but I will tape down examples of my work. And the reason that I think you should have 2 and to put 2 pieces of your subject into clear plastic sheet protectors is so that you have one that stays, that you can keep clean and wipe off easily, and that you have one that you can tape down near your piece where your name and the name of the artist of your piece and what the name of your piece is, as well as a social media handle if you want it to be there. So you'll need cardboard. I just tear up an old cardboard box or cut it up to keep it under my knees. Some people wear knee pads. I think they're hot. Sometimes they cut off your circulation, but whatever's most comfortable for you. And of course, we're going to have volunteers roaming around, the wonderful volunteers with the Rotary clubs and other groups in the Stafford and Fredericksburg area who will give us these great kits with sunscreen and water and snacks. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. So next slide. I did a short video of a street painting to show you the steps from start to finish that you'll be able to watch later. But for this presentation, I chose an inset of one of my favorite paintings by Caravaggio called Judith Beheading Holofernes, an old piece from mythology. And what you're looking at is my grid. So after I've chosen this female portrait profile, I grid it off in 1 square inch sections, and I number it from top left down and top left to the right, so that I can transfer it easily from 1 inch to 1 foot. So basically, let me get my glasses out here. This piece, if I did it full size with 1 square inch equaling 1 square foot, my painting would end up being about 9.5 feet by 9.5 feet tall by 6.5 feet wide. If you have questions about this as we go forward, again, just pop them in the chat. Okay, next slide. So it was raining the day that I did this piece for you guys. I wanted it to be a little more attractive, but this is the interior of my garage. And what you see here is a black layer of tempera paint. I suggest that you bring that with you, and sharing this is a very easy and fun thing to do. In fact, sharing materials throughout the festival is something that I find to be one of the most one of the most fun things for me is that I tend to share my T-square, my rulers, my chalk, anything that I can lend to someone, and vice versa, that can help us be successful. I think that makes it a fun show. So the tempera paint, I take black because my subject that I'm doing for you has a black background, and I put it in just a regular paint pan with a roller, and I roll it out. It dries in about 15 or 20 minutes when there's not a lot of humidity, and then you're ready to go. And I took a T-square and a triangle to get the right edge, because you do want a right angle, one line perpendicular to the other, to make sure that you're really transferring 1 inch to 1 foot, and that all your squares are perfect squares. So next slide. Okay, and I think at this point, we're just going to speed it up a little bit, and I'm going to talk you through it. So once my grid is down, you can see that I'm working here from my computer in my garage, and I'm using white chalk to outline the face of Judith. And I tend to work top to bottom. And as this goes, I thought I would talk a little bit about my subject matter and how I choose my subjects, and the history of what I like to do. And then in the next phase, we'll get to how best to choose your subjects and how best to have fun while you're doing this. So I love masterpieces. I am a printmaker by trade. My degree is in lithography, actually, and I love the layering process. In fact, when I'm working on a stone or a plate, transferring an image, a piece that I've painted or drawn on paper, in order to make a final piece of art, if I've chosen to do it with a lithopress, is not too unlike the layering of chalk. And it's why I love this so much, aside from the fact that it's performance art and people get to watch you do it. So as you can see, this slightly sped up video. I hate watching myself, but I actually love to watch. I love the time lapse videos of people, especially when they're doing the 3D pieces. I have quickly laid in the shape of Judith's head. I typically would take about an hour or two to lay out the lines of the entire piece. But because this is only about a 20 to 30 minute session, you're not, and I didn't finish this piece entirely, I just went about down to her nose, then we won't go through all that. But the reason I love the masterwork so much is because the work I do for myself does not lend itself well to street painting. I do use the human figure, specifically the human female figure, to express myself, share ideas about community, society, sometimes politics. But that's my personal work. And like I said, I just never have felt that it lent itself to this medium that I love so much. And I love the Flemish masters and the masters from the Renaissance and the work they did. That to do it in large scale is just one of my favorite things to do. And I wonder, can we go forward? Can we speed this up a little bit more, Tracy, or can you push the video forward a little bit?
All I can really do is advance to the next video. Well, actually, I may be able to speed this up, but I can just advance to the next video if you want.
Well, it's getting into the eye area right now. And, it's funny. It is slow enough for the guests to see how I blend. And in the next video, you'll be able to see, I'm always stopping and looking at my subject, making sure my lines are right.
I can stop and move forward if you want, because people will have the ability to watch this later. And also I will be sending out the video that is not sped up, so people can actually watch the entire thing in real time if they wanted to.
Okay.
Oh, wait a second.
Here we go. So at this point, I took a break for a while, and that's something that you should really pay attention to during the day. If you don't stop and drink water, get a bite to eat, stand back from your piece more than anything else. After I got down to the brow area and the eye area, I walked away from my piece for a while. I went inside, got some iced tea, had a snack, and came back and looked at the piece from 5 to 6 feet away and realized there were some things I didn't like about it. So as I continued, and I tried to get my camera up over my head and closer to my right hand, but it didn't work. And at the same time, I think this will give those of you who want to do this kind of piece a good enough idea about blending, about getting started, and then about blending, the use of different shades of yellow and pink and blue over your white to really exemplify and to exaggerate the colors that you see in your original piece. And one of the other reasons that I chose Judith and Judith's face is because I noticed that a lot of time my fellow artists, as with all, I think we're all very nervous about drawing ourselves or drawing another human being. And I understand that. I was for a long time. So I forced myself into that. And because of that, drawing the human figure became the one thing in my art that I love the most. And sometimes doing it in an environment where you're working across 2 days and you're working in front of people can really help you get over that fear. But I would say that those of you who are choosing to do a representational piece, especially if you're choosing to do a piece that is a human being or an animal, that you really think about in your planning how to see. And that's what this is. Working representationally, especially working figuratively, is really just seeing. It's copying, it's looking at something, whether you're doing a human nude and you're working from the live model, or whether you're working like I'm working there in the video from a two-dimensional piece. It's just seeing. You're looking at shapes, and if you can try to draw the shapes that you see instead of trying to draw an eye, because if you say, okay, I'm going to draw this eye now, we end up drawing sometimes our idea of an eye or our idea of a nose or a mouth, and it can be the most frustrating thing in the world. And once that clicked in my head, I was able to move forward with my work. Okay, is that it?
That's it. That's it for the videos. Yes.
Oh, great.
Here we go.
So this was a piece in Fredericksburg while I was with the museum, and we were teaching an outdoor tutorial that day. And I like this photograph a lot, and I didn't even remember that I had done Judith before in a tutorial. So I love this. And this, when I was looking at this and the Andy Warhol Maryland next to this really dark piece with the red and the brown and the black and the white, it's a good example of why sharing materials is important. Oftentimes, like especially like with the piece that I'm going to do in 3D this year, I'm going to need a ton of red. So I'm probably going to come to everybody in the festival asking, if I see somebody that doesn't have any red in their street painting, I'm going to be wanting to trade some chalk for some red chalk. And that's what I hope everybody can do. Sharing with your fellow artists and the camaraderie, the friendship with fellow artists, and supporting and promoting each other is just the coolest thing about this. And I urge you to tag everyone in social media and take frequent photographs of your work and post to social media. It's amazing the number of follows that you'll get even during the day, during the festival. And I believe that's about all I have. Do you want to open it up to questions, Tracy?
Yes, absolutely.
Did I cover everything that you were wanting to see? I know Tracy's going to share the whole presentation with you later. But is there anything that I didn't cover or something that someone wants to ask? I asked Tracy if there was a way that people could pop what they're planning to do or thinking about doing into the chat, but maybe people could put a link to what they're planning to do into the chat, and I can look at it. Anybody willing to share their image with me? No?
Ellen, I'm going to stop the recording, but we can carry on conversationally.
Okay. You want to show the piece that I'm going to do in 3D next weekend?
Yes.